not know me, I've seen some of you in my last talk that I gave, and then other ones I just recognized from seeing you in and out of the office. But thanks so much for being here tonight, and then some of you have been my patients in the past. But I want to thank you for being here. This is such an important topic, and our country, for various reasons, gets really funny about talking about this. And we were coming up with our ideas of what we were going to do health talks on for the year, and I was like, well, this is very personal to me, and I'm going to tell you way too much information tonight, but it, for me, is something that I get very passionate about. And when I had to make some health changes years ago, this was the reason that drove them. And so I know for a lot of people, they want to have a better job when it comes to sex. And so I figured rather than talk about it in some crazy 50 Shades way or crazy locker room talk, why not just talk about it out in the open from a very basic human and physiological way? So before we get into that, let's talk about, like, if we can, we all have different reasons that we're here and different things that we plan to get out of the program. And Torsa, if you don't mind, I'm just saying, like, what types of problems are you having that brought you to the talk tonight? I'm just kidding, guys. Everybody's just sitting there looking at me. All right.
And I thought I was going to find out something.
All right, so let's get talking about, and wasn't that a fun title for a talk, Livin? And here was our rationale for that, because there's kids that come in and out of the office. So we're going to talk about, like, supercharge your sex life, except you think about the kids coming in and out, like, that would not be a fun topic for, like, these really little ones. So we thought we'd kind of disguise it a little bit. So by saying that, a lot of people don't know, or at least a lot of kids don't know. So that said, let's get on the topic of tonight. Before I talk about my story, let me tell you how I'll talk about the workshop tonight. At the end, I'm going to give you 10 powerful steps you can do. So in the meanwhile, the first part of what we talk about are just going to be the concepts that you need to understand, so that when you do the action steps, you understand why you're doing those action steps. The next thing is, when we talk about the concepts, there's 3 central things we're going to talk about. Number 1 is we're going to talk about hormones, and then number 2, how the nervous system works, and then number 3, how strength and circulation, i.e. general fitness, plays into the role of this topic, okay? So that said, how about everybody, just to get some movement going, everybody just stand up and take a big breath. Can you do that? Okay, just big breath and then go. Good, thanks for the idea, Tyler. And back down, good, you can all have a seat, thank you. All right, so my story, I just turned 43 this year, and you know, it's funny thinking back, when I was 18, like, this was all I thought about was sex, and I'm just being upfront, and I was the typical little teenage kid that it was like, I couldn't imagine ever, like, not thinking about it. And I could never imagine, you would hear stories, just stories of people that were having problems. And at that age, I was like, how could anybody ever have a problem in this department? And so anyway, I had like these raging hormones. Well, then life sets in, and you go to school or you work, and the regular day in, day out work sets in, and then our Western culture, and then our Western eating styles and lack of exercise. All these things happen over time, and then by the time I was in my mid-30s, I got to this point, which was very unhappy times in my life. And I remember there were a couple, like, very, just, they stuck out in my head of, like, that we were having problems. Was my wife and I, we would just go to a counselor, and I think counselors can be really cool, and just helping you, you know, if you're having challenges or just be a better couple, they can help you sort through mental things. Well, one of them at that time was that we weren't having sex. And so we would talk about it, like actually scheduling a time. And we would get out our schedule planners and write them in our times for when we were going to do it. And I remember it was like Thursdays at 8 o'clock. And I still remember at 6 o'clock being like, oh, I got this coming up, and I don't know. And anyway, that for me led to more stress. And whatever the case, they weren't fun times. The long and short is, we just weren't doing it. And then on top of that, I remember we were laying on the couch, again like this, watching TV, which was something we did a lot of, and like eating donuts or something. And my wife noticed that I had no hair around my like ankles. And I noticed that too, which was really weird. And she's like, you have no hair in your ankles. I was like, I don't know why that is. And she said, well, you're just getting older. And I just pictured like going to like these backyard barbecues with my grandfathers and uncles, or grandfather and uncles as a kid, and seeing like these blue legs and not any hair on them. And so I just thought, well, that's what happens, I guess, when you get old. But somehow I was in my early 30s and I was like, something just doesn't seem right. And so I started doing a little research online, and I started finding out that it can be related to high blood pressure, and it can be related to a decrease in testosterone. So then I started like, okay, well, this is cool. It gave me like a starting point. And so then I was like, well, let's check out the testosterone. And I knew I've had issues with my blood pressure my whole life, and I keep it in check through how I eat and exercise. But if this coffee were caffeinated right now, my blood pressure would be up over 150. And so I know it usually hangs in the upper 120s. But that said, I know for me, I started playing around with different things. And testosterone, I would hear like walnuts increase testosterone. So I'm like chucking down walnuts like they're going out of style. And then I'd hear like doing squats can increase your testosterone. So I'd be doing wall squats and mouthfuls of walnuts. And so they just weren't working. And so I kept doing more and more research and just finding out really what some very basics are. And so this is like years and years of research. They really focus around three things. Again, they're your hormones, your nervous system, and your general fitness in all. So let's talk about the things that contribute to them. Excuse me. First, before we talk about those, let's talk about the problem. This is shocking. In the United States, well, that's kind of small, you're not able to see. Compared to other countries, what frequency do you think that we have of sex with couples in this country compared to other countries? Do you think that we have the most sex, the least sex, somewhere in the middle?
In the middle.
Somewhere in the middle? Okay, I'm hearing, somebody says least. Tyler, you say least? Tyler, I'm going to avoid putting a joke on you right now. I'm just screwing around. Okay, so I'm hearing somewhere in the middle. Here's from top all the way down to the bottom. The only people that have less than the US is Japan. This for me was like stunning. But you know what's crazy? You open up any magazine and what do you see? Like half naked people all over. And you turn on the television and it's all about, who's and all this other stuff. Yeah, we're like the most obsessed culture with sex, yet we're having it the least except for Japan. You know who the top three are? And I still don't understand that. Greece, Brazil. I could see Brazil, but Greece, and then Russia. I don't think of a bunch of Russian people. Yeah. But
Has to do with cold weather.
It's cold, Mike. It's cold.
Yeah, I guess it's cold. They got to stay warm somehow, right? So, okay, and I was looking just for stats, and I put this here. I didn't think much of it, but it shocked Dr. Mike. Dr. Denise Donnelly, who's Associate Professor of Sociology at Georgia State, she was quoted that over 30, sex frequency drops by about half. Now in that, about 15% of married couples have not had sex with their spouse in the last 6 months to a year. So about 15% of couples walking around today haven't done it in the last 6 months to a year. That is frightening. And then we wonder why we have so many issues with intimacy in this country. And so we've got a big problem. Right now, up to 43% of women and 30% of men have sexual dysfunction. And again, the US in particular has the least amount of sex compared to the other countries that are out there. So we've definitely got some problems. How do we try to solve our problems in this country? Drugs and surgery, right? So right now, medication is things we look at. Well, right now, the medical industry is loving men. They're going to be loving women. Ray Moynihan teamed up with a doctor, and they wrote a book called Sexualizing Pharmaceuticals, how drug companies plan to profit from female sexual dysfunction. Well, right now, we just talked about it. 43% of females in this country have some degree of sexual dysfunction. The pharmacies are waiting, or the pharmaceutical companies are waiting to pounce once they get things in order, they are going to pounce on that. If you think Viagra right now and Cialis and those things are big, wait until they can actually prescribe something for women. They will pounce all over it. So we've got Cialis, Viagra, Provestra. These are herbals. The Climax, these are all herbals, which means they aren't patented yet by a pharmaceutical company. But once they start getting patents, they will be jumping all over it. So it leads to problems. We've got a toxic physiology. And here's some interesting things to know. A very interesting chart. All these things tie in together. If you look at obesity in adults, these are pretty close timelines. So it's from 1960 to right there is 2010. So here's about 1960 to 2010. So if you can see the things that all go up together, we have obesity, and then what else goes right up with obesity? Diabetes. And so it only makes sense when we start having obesity and diabetes going up. What other things, and not even sex, what other problems are we going to see going up with obesity and diabetes going up? Heart problems, that's right. What else?
Blood pressure.
Blood pressure, yeah, and those things are related to what traumatic events? Strokes and heart attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right alongside those, we have so many problems in this country. Well, right alongside those, sex goes right along with it. So we're not addressing the cause. And then when we work with these drugs as our number one choice rather than lifestyle, we have liver dysfunction. You know, drugs can put such a toll on our livers and our kidneys. And then we also have weight gain. There's so many drugs that are out there that cause us to gain weight. We have dependence on them. And then in some rare and unfortunate circumstances, we occasionally have death, dry mouth, and seizures. And so we're not addressing the cause of the problem. So what is the real cause? Did everybody see this that went around the internet not long ago? Like, people are all laughing, and in a way it's funny, but in a way it's not. This little kid, he is drowning in his body right now. And this is where it starts. If people want to know, like, where all of our problems are starting, our obesity and our diabetes, this is where it's at. And so we've got these things that look like food. They're marketed as food, but they're not food. And they're filled with GMOs. And then we have exercise, lack of exercise. We have toxins that go into those chemical and artificial, different preservatives and additives and things that make them taste a certain way. So anyway, all our health is interrelated. What you need to know is, and this is just kind of a fun fact, that in men, and we're, by the way, going to talk quite a bit about both male and female hormones tonight, but one of the things prior to a major cardiac event in men, they call it the canary in the coal mine in some places. Everybody know the canary in the coal mine story? The coal miners would take a canary with them down in the mine. And what would happen is the canary would die. The coal miners would come running out because they know the oxygen level is low. The canary would die before then. And so if they saw the canary die, they're like, okay, low oxygen, let's leave. Well, in men, their ability to stay erect is directly related to their heart health as well. So one of the things is men that have a history of impotence, it's very, very common that within 3 years, they have a major cardiac event. I'm not saying it's that way every single time, but it's a very common thing that happens in men. So, going on, let's talk about the first of our concepts. Remember we were talking about the hormonal system? This is the big hormone that we need to talk about, and it gets so confused. This is testosterone, and we call it the party hormone because it's really what makes things happen in this department. Now, it's important for both men and women. Now, women make a fraction of it compared to what men do, but women are much, much more sensitive to testosterone in their bodies. Men are not as sensitive to testosterone. You cannot make estrogen without testosterone. If you're a female, you cannot make your estrogen without testosterone. It's your building block for your other hormones. It's also, for females, what gives you sex drive and what gives you ability for more performance as well. So testosterone is critical for you as a female, and you need to think about, how can I focus on my testosterone? So I want to be just as clear and as basic as possible, and I'll talk about anti-hormones here in a few minutes too, but I need you to understand, if you're a female, testosterone is very, 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 very important for your sex hormones. Well, guys, it's kind of a given. Everybody knows, guys testosterone, so we don't need to spend much time talking about that. But whether you're male or whether you're female, you need to understand that testosterone is very important. Now, how do we increase testosterone? There's certain ways that we can do it. One is to use very big muscle groups and lift heavy things. Remember I was talking when I was eating all my walnuts and doing my wall squats? Okay, big muscle groups are your butt and your thighs. Those things really increase your testosterone. Tonight I did, I haven't been to CrossFit in a while. I just started going back, and we did like these box jumps and then thrusters where you go down like this and then come back up with the bar. So I did like 60 thrusters and 15 box jumps. And the long and short is, and I know this, I've done it enough now, my body will, tomorrow morning, will have very predictable results. And I'm just saying how your body works. It's predictable by doing certain things. Well, you can lift heavy things. So in other words, when we say heavy things, doing a 5-pound dumbbell is not going to help all that much. And this is something I say because especially as people get older, they don't want to bulk up or they're afraid of hurting themselves, so they just stick to like little 5-pound weights. Those do not do things. And in fact, they can actually act against your ability to produce testosterone, which means they can act against your natural sex drive and they can cause your sex drive to go lower. Does everybody follow me so far? I'm not putting anybody to sleep, am I?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So, Torsa, you're all hopped up on adrenaline still because you were thinking I was going to ask you all those personal questions earlier, right?
Yeah.
Okay, vitamin D3 is very powerful as well. There's been a lot of research that's been done on this that shows that it actually increases testosterone. Now, they've actually done the studies on D3 in men, but if it works for men, you would think that it's also going to work for women as well. And D3 is something that every single person on this planet needs, and without D3 you actually die. So if you don't have D3, make sure, we'll talk about things when we go later on, we'll talk about action steps, but D3 increases testosterone. Does anybody know what HIT is?
It.
What? HIT? Okay.
Intensity training.
Any ideas? High intensity training? Okay. Thanks. You've been answering them all so far.
That's what I was thinking.
You're right on, yeah. High intensity training. Does anybody know what high intensity training is? Okay, you do. Who was here? You were here for lose 5 pounds in 7 days, right? You weren't? I'm sorry, I thought you were. Who was here for lose 5 pounds in 7 days? Okay, you were? Okay, so we only have 2 people, right? Danielle's parents? Okay, and you were here? Okay, does anybody remember a certain Ryan getting up here and doing his burpees?
Oh, I saw that on the video.
Yeah.
Well, I saw
So
that
did
on
you see the video,
too.
the guy doing all the burpees? Okay, he was just doing that little workout. He did a total of 90 seconds of working out. It looked like he was killing himself though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kill yourself in a workout in 9 minutes. I'm dead serious. It doesn't take long. And in fact, those short types of high intensity training workouts are the ones that will boost your testosterone really, really quick. If you want to see a great example, you can see this with Ryan, what he was doing. Or you can go to the YouTube channel for Liberation and you can check out the lose 5 pounds in 7 days talk that I did. I clearly lay out exactly how to do high intensity training, okay? So high intensity training is very crucial. Basically, what you do is you do very, very high level of activity that exhausts the muscle group or muscle groups, like burpees or squats or lunges, and then you take a short break, like 20 seconds. You do like another 20 seconds on, another 20 seconds off, and like another 20 seconds. So that gives you like your 3 sets, and then you get like a 2-minute break. And then you can do another set of that. Well, if you do 3 sets of those, 3 cycles, you're going to exhaust yourself. So it's not hard. It's a great way. It pumps up human growth hormone, which ends up pumping up testosterone. Does everybody follow? Okay. So this is a study that's been done on mice and rats. This is cool. And it's been done on males. They need to do it on females too, but it's going to still be the same result. If we increase insulin, we decrease our testosterone levels. How do we increase insulin? What do we eat that increases insulin in our bloodstream? Sugar. So if we increase sugar, this is like within hours, our testosterone level plummets. And I forget the actual numbers. It goes down like substantially. My thought is sugar, foods that turn into sugar, if you want to help with your sex drive, your libido, and your performance, stay away from sugar very, very, very much. All right? So let's talk more about hormones. Estrogen. It's made by both men and women. It is needed for proper human function in both men and women. The problem is exogenous, not usually endogenous. Here's the deal. Exogenous means you get it from the outside. Endogenous means you make it. Everybody follow me? The estrogen that you make is not a problem typically unless you're obese. If you're obese, usually it's a different type of estrogen your body makes. And what we need to understand are there's different types of estrogen. There's not just estrogen. There's different types of estrogen. So everybody's required to have it. People get like, well, I don't have enough or I have too much. The reality is if we avoid the outside estrogen and if we avoid the estrogen from being very overweight, typically our estrogen is going to self-regulate. Estrogen can work with too much of it. It can work in a way that it causes sex drive in both men and women to go down. But up to a degree with women, estrogen's very powerful, and then once we have the wrong type, then it starts going back down. Does everybody follow me? So that said, let's talk about, we talk about your hormone system. This is like the topic of, when we're talking about libido, we're talking about like the tip of the iceberg. Really, with our overall health, this is what we're looking at when we're approaching our overall health. All this stuff I'm talking about is interrelated. It doesn't matter if you want better blood pressure, better sex, better body weight, better body composition. It's all interrelated. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It will cause testosterone to drop really, really quick. So if you are stressed, you can cause some problems for yourself. And is everybody familiar with that one with cortisol? That being stressed causes, think about it. If you're stressed, how many people feel like going home and getting wild if you're all stressed out? Not very many. Now what's another way to increase cortisol? Everybody knows that being stressed can, but what is a way, most people don't realize this, a way to increase your cortisol? Does anybody, and it says it right there, chronic cardio. Can somebody give me an idea of chronic cardio? Exactly, marathon runners. Yeah, now let's take two different examples because these are good. Everybody know what a typical marathon runner looks like? Mm-hmm. Usually very skinny. Do they usually have a lot of muscle? No. Mm-hmm. Now let's take somebody like a 100 or 200 yard sprinter. Did everybody picture in their head Usain Bolt? Mm-hmm. Okay, you can see, have you seen him? He looks like a Greek statue. So that is a typical 200 yard sprinter. They're both getting cardio. Why do you think the marathon runners typically look so darn skinny and these 100 and 200 yard runners have so much well-developed muscle? Any ideas? Okay, stress? Yeah, here's the deal. Those 200 yard runners, guess what they're doing? They're doing high intensity training every time they train. They're saying, hey, go run those 200 yards and relax. So that's what they do. They run 200 yards and they relax. They're doing their high intensity training. The marathon runners, they're doing chronic cardio. That kicks up your cortisol, which in turn plummets your testosterone level. It becomes very hard for your body to put on muscle. You know what also makes it tough for marathon runners to do too? Have sex. So yeah, chronic cardio, generally speaking, walking is great. You can do walking your whole life as much as you want. If you want to walk 20 miles a day, I say God bless you. But if you want to start jogging those 20 miles, that starts falling into what we call the chronic cardio phase. And if you start pumping up your heart rate and it goes over 45 minutes, you're going to start increasing the cortisol levels, which means going on the elliptical like this for 45 minutes, I would strongly suggest you don't. Or jogging for 45 minutes, I would strongly suggest you avoid those things. It can lead to chronic stress on your body, which again is what we said. So let's talk about more about the hormone system. Insulin, we talked about that. Remember how we talked, what's related to insulin levels?
Sugar.
Yeah, sugar. And again, what does it do to our testosterone? It drops it down, that's right. And then obesity. Now here's what's interesting. Anybody know what another word for adipose tissue is?
Fat.
Fat, that's right. Adipose tissue. It gives off up to 14 bad hormones. There is another way that people talk about people that are very, very overweight, and they actually say that the fat becomes another gland in our body. So if you think about our glands, like our endocrine system, like our liver, our kidneys, our pituitary gland, our thyroid gland, in people that have too much fat, it becomes an actual gland. It gives off hormones, bad hormones, and up to 14 bad ones. Among them are inflammatory hormones, but among them as well, it gives off estrogen, and not the good type of estrogen. This is the type of estrogen that will make your testosterone levels go down. So among other things, if you want to increase your sex drive substantially, is to decrease your adipose tissue. When I remember going to a seminar, I learned that 14 different things. I was like blown away. And like I said, they're not good things. So, estrogen dominance, testosterone decrease, cortisol elevation. I won't get into DHEA because I'll put you to sleep even more than I am now. Nobody's asleep yet, right? Okay, good. Good. Thanks, Toxins. All right. So let's talk more about our hormonal system. Here's some toxins. We talked about sugar, right? Then we've got soy. Why could soy be a toxin? Well, yeah, good on that. I wasn't even thinking that, but yeah, I think like 90% of the crops are GMO now. But what else about soy? What is in there with soy that can be a problem?
Carbohydrate?
Estrogen, that's right, and not the good type. It's not the good type. I don't believe that soy actually has all that many carbs, which is why you see so many low-carb plans that say, here, it's packed with protein, and it's low in carbs. And I think Atkins is notorious for doing this. They make these protein bars that are soy bars. They're nasty, and they got tons of protein, and it's all from soy. And so anyway, soy is just a nasty thing. I know this is anecdotal, but I read a men's health blog back when I was still chomping my walnuts and doing my wall squats. I read a men's health blog or magazine, and it was about a guy that was drinking. Now, he was drinking like a half gallon of soy milk a day and having a soy-based cereal, and he actually was growing man boobs. Yeah.
Oh,
and I mean, the guy took care of himself. He exercised and everything, but he literally was developing mammary glands. Now, again, I know that's just one story, but that was enough to do research, and the research shows that soy can be a problem. Yeah, Tyler?
I was going to ask, is fermented soy any different in that?
Yeah, the problem is it does go back to GMOs. I don't even know if there is a non-GMO soy available, like that you can readily buy. But if there is, I've done a lot of research about getting soy fermented, and fermented soy there doesn't seem to be problems with. So thanks. And I was thinking that in my head, but about going there. But yes, fermented soy is not a problem. Okay? So then we've got inflammation can cause a problem with our hormonal systems as well. So high omega-6 to 3 ratio. Where do we get omega-6, like very high omega-6 oils? What are some
Fish.
high omega-6? What's that?
Fish.
Fish? No, those are your omega-3s.
Oh, okay.
Red meat.
Red meat, if it is grain-fed, has usually high omega-6. But let me just say this. Omega-3 is the good guy. Omega-6 is the bad guy. Typically, anybody that's done the nutritional profile here, you know how you talk about omega-6 to omega-3? Okay, it's very important. You want 3 up here and 6 down here. But instead, what we typically have is the other way around.
Right.
Yeah, so what you want is to go like this. So what are things that we do, what are the problematic foods that are putting omega-6 into our bloodstreams?
Corn.
Corn, exactly. Corn oil. We've got sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil, soybean oil. What else?
Canola.
Canola oil.
Vegetable.
Yes, and really any vegetable oil. When you get to olive oil is a good thing, higher omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And then your good ones are going to be your coconut oil, and then you also have like cage-free organic eggs, and your things like, what was I going to say? Oh, of course, fish oils, and good wild-caught salmon, and things like that, especially fish oils. If anybody's not taking omega-3s, you really should be taking them. And again, it's on the nutritional profile that we do here. So Anyway, when this gets out of balance, what that does is it messes with our sex hormones. And so and there has been a lot of research done on it, omega-3s help to increase sex hormones. Then we've got, again, sugar, lack of antioxidants. So what are foods that we get antioxidants in?
Blueberries.
What's that?
Blueberries.
Blueberries really are green vegetables. By the way, here's some fun biological facts and myths. Oysters boost sex drive. You know how you get these pictures of people eating the raw oysters at night? Well, first of all, oysters aren't a clean meat. They sit on the bottom and eat fish poop all day. Sorry. But the second part on that is, it's the zinc that people talk about. You can do just as much by eating a handful of nuts as you would be by eating the oysters. And even for that to happen, it doesn't just happen that night. It takes time for that zinc to settle into your body. So the kind of thing of people, eating raw oysters and then getting crazy is kind of a little bit of a misnomer. Age is a factor, not a death sentence. So obviously it does play a role. When you're 18, yes, you do have hormones raging through your body, but it doesn't mean that you can't influence them as you go on. And then a way to plummet your sex drive if you're a female, birth control. Sorry, it just does that. Especially around the time you're getting ready to ovulate and your body's like getting all gunned up for having sex, boom, you're telling your body, nope, no, yes, Torsha?
So I do have a question.
Yeah.
You said that the oyster boost is a myth?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Do you have other ways, Torsha?
I mean, I had a dozen of raw oysters.
Yeah.
And I felt something crazy when I had those oysters.
Are you sure they were just oysters and your husband didn't slip anything in them? I'm just kidding. Maybe everybody's different. And I'm just telling you what the research I've read talks about, Torsa. And maybe there's exceptions, and I guess we're all different. I'm not, I've heard of crazier things, and so, yeah.
One more question.
Yeah, hey, wait, since you're asking the question, how about you share more of the circumstance and the night and things like that about the... I'm just kidding, I'm picking on poor Torso all night.
Watermelon.
Yeah?
Is that a myth?
No, because that does have, and I didn't talk about watermelon, but it's got, and it's like NO2, nitric oxide, and I want to be really careful and not feed you guys a line of BS, except to say that I've heard good things about it in conjunction with other things, yes, because it helps to open and dilate blood vessels, and in both men and women. What's a pharmaceutical drug that's out there right now that opens blood vessels so men can have erections?
Cialis, Viagra.
Exactly. So it naturally does those things that they try to accomplish with Viagra and Cialis. So yeah, and I know from the research that I've read that it does it pretty quick, but again, I haven't done as much research on that as the other things, so I don't want to talk much more than that.
Okay.
Sound fair?
That's fair.
Okay, thanks for asking questions. All right. So those are myths. Okay, next, we're on to the nervous system. What is not under control in our body by the nervous system? Is there anything that's not under control? No, pretty much every single thing in our body. And when you were inside the womb, the very first thing that developed was your brain and spinal cord. And so it told everything else inside of you how to grow and how to do it. Everything in your body is controlled by your nervous system. This is a study that's come out like in the last, it's probably now about 7 or 8 years, but you adjust C1, you decrease blood pressure. And in other words, a problem with your nervous system can cause problems with sex. It controls your basal control, which again is very, very important for, you were talking about watermelon, how it opens up and dilates. Well, if you have pressure on your nervous system, it can do the exact opposite. So like I said, this was a Harvard study where they adjusted C1, and they did find that they're able to actually decrease blood pressure. And the nervous system goes in so much more than just blood pressure. But if you're a patient here, or if you've been around the office, your nervous system controls like everything in your body. It's kind of a no-brainer that your sex organs would be under their control as well. All right? So the next thing is strength and circulation, or we're just going to call it general fitness, right? So with general fitness, and here's what got me, and I think of this, we expect that we're going to go to the bedroom and we're going to have this wild, blockbuster, bang-up time. And the reality is, like, a lot of us can't even climb a flight of stairs, And then we're like, I don't understand why it can't work in the bedroom. It takes a lot of energy to have sex. It really does. And if you think, there were some jokes there, I'm not going to go on. But anyway, if you think about it, like, it is so closely and intimately tied in with our general level of physical fitness. And I'm just going to volunteer for myself. When I'm exercising a lot and I'm doing really well, keeping my physical fitness up, my wife and I have a lot more fun. And when I'm not doing it and I'm having off weeks here and there, it declines. And so it plays a very direct role in what we do. There was a study, and this is a no-brainer, males and females, more fitness equals better sex, University of Arkansas. Blood pressure, which is, again, very closely tied with our level of physical fitness, has a direct effect on both men and women. The same circulation problems going on in our legs can also be going on in our pelvis. Have you seen people that have bluish-colored legs? Has anybody seen that? You know why they get blue-colored legs? Why do they have blue-colored legs?
The veins?
What's that? Yeah, they're not getting circulation. It happens a lot in diabetic people. Now, if you think that they're not getting it all down in their legs, do you think there's a good likelihood that they're not getting it in their pelvis too? Or at least it's decreased in their pelvis? Yeah. So people talk about these different, like they're different things. Like, I've got peripheral arterial disease, which they get problems in their fingertips and in their legs. And they don't see how it's connected to their high blood pressure or their other artery problems, or the fact that they can't perform down there because they are lacking sensation. So if you have blue legs, there's a strong likelihood that you're also missing function in your sexual organs as well. And so blood pressure, again, has a problem. I like this. Ironically, ED is a growing problem. So anyway, 10 tips to crank up your mojo. So here's the real good tips. Number one, and this is all based on stuff we talked about, dramatically decrease sugar and things that turn into it. So even wheat breads, white breads, juice, junk food, and some high glycemic fruits and root vegetables. So I know, Torsa, you're sitting there going like that. Fruits are wonderful. I love fruits. But the problem is that we have a tendency to eat too much fruit. So especially if you're somebody like me that has insulted their body over and over through eating the wrong foods, you have problems when it comes to sugars and carbs. And so if you have fruit, it's generally good to have it as a little bit of a treat after you have all your other foods. Where there's a problem is people interchange fruit and vegetables. They say, I eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. Well, that's a really broad thing. Vegetables? Eat as many as you want of the good, healthy types of vegetables. Eat tons and tons of them. Fruit are good to have just in maybe very small quantities because you'll want to avoid, Are you saying wow or saying why?
You're saying wow.
Because I also call myself, dieting and cutting back, and I started doing fruit smoothies.
Yeah.
And I put some kale in there, but I do strawberries, pineapple, which pineapple was good for you, and blueberries and banana with a little kale in there to get the vegetable. Yeah. So is that not good for me to do that? Well,
Torsa, again, it goes on to your kale, absolutely wonderful. Your blueberries are lower glycemic fruit, so are your strawberries. Berries in general are. But when you get into your pineapples and bananas, if you're trying to really control your blood sugar, those are things that are going to spike it up pretty darn quick. Okay. So just to let you know, I'm not saying never eat another banana, but if you maybe had like a quarter of a banana and maybe just like a little chunk of a pineapple and tons of kale and then like a few blueberries and a few strawberries, that would be a good way. I guess it depends on how much of what. Okay. Does that sound fair?
That sounds fair.
Okay.
And I got one more question for you.
Yes.
I'm leaving alone.
Oh, no problem.
What about peanut butter shakes?
Well, peanuts are a legume. They're not a nut. And so when you get in the concept of legumes, they can cause problems in our digestive permeability. I don't want to go too much on it. I will be the first to say that when I splurge, I love having peanuts. Are kind of like my little, they're my little crazy food that I'll have. So almond butter tends to be much healthier than peanut butter. Yeah, but those are decent. Now they can stall weight gain if you have too much, but generally if you want to throw in like 2 tablespoons, I say fine. And if the worst of your crimes you're committing is having 2 tablespoons of peanut butter instead of almond butter, I won't tell anybody. Okay? But if it's Jif peanut butter, if it's a natural organic peanut butter, that's better.
Yeah, well, my dad's from Trinidad.
Yeah.
And the Islanders, they drink peanut butter juice.
Oh,
And it's peanut butter and they boil it down with water.
Yeah.
And they cool it off and put a little coconut milk with it.
Ooh, that
And
sounds
it's supposed to help the men stay.
Yeah. Stay.
And
She's
they
expecting going like
they
that.
live by it.
Yeah.
So that's what I was wondering.
Okay. I've never heard that, but that sounds kind of cool.
It's not Peter Pan though.
Okay.
Yeah, stuff that you got. Real.
Okay, so number 2, decrease your omega-6 as much as you can. Now, in your nuts, they do have omega-6s. We're going to naturally get them where we need them, but try as much as you can to decrease these. So again, your sunflower, safflower, soybean, cottonseed, canola oils. Instead, use extra virgin olive oil, organic coconut oil, butter from grass-fed cows, walnut oil, avocado oil. Those things are all very powerful. Excuse me, get off gluten. If you're on things that have gluten, like your wheats, your grains, those things have been shown to decrease testosterone levels, both men and women. Okay? Then, number 4, get your nervous system back to your optimal state. Again, if you're a patient here, wonderful. I'm glad you're doing it. If your spouse needs to be in here, do what you can, get your spouse in here as well. Supplement with vitamin D3 and omega-3 fatty acids. We had talked about that. Get off of soy. Avoid BPA. Like, where do we find BPA in? Well, we've got examples here. Does anybody know the new car smell, what you smell, the new car smell? Mm-hmm. Okay. You know, you smell it in a car. Where else can you smell the new car smell? Any ideas?
Furniture.
What's that? Furniture? Yeah. Or, you know how you open up and you get a new shower curtain? If you get, those little plastic liners, for like 2 days I got to air out my bathroom because it has the new car smell, That's all BPA. And I'll tell you what, and maybe I'm hypersensitive, but I like get the heck out of there because I'm like, okay, I don't want to mess things up. Okay, but yeah, anytime you smell that plasticky smell, that's all BPA. Canned foods, they have a lot of BPA. Yeah, it sucks.
Can you trust the cans that says that it's BPA free?
Well, I am not aware of cans that say BPA free, and I'm aware of water bottles that say BPA free, but I'm not aware of cans. Have you seen actual cans that say BPA free?
Yeah, some of them are saying that now.
Yeah. And I've got to say I haven't done research. I would think that it's better than no BPA, but that said, I also read articles that talk about the BPA-free water bottles that still have BPA in.
Right.
Yeah, so I get a little leery, but on the other hand, I would encourage you just to look it up and see. I know Mercola, he loves commenting on stuff like that. So I would love to see what Mercola has to say. I just can't say I really know enough about it. But yeah, I didn't even know they made canned foods that say BPA-free at this point. Okay, as much as you can though, BPA, avoid it. I know, Torsa, I know you got more questions, or you look like you do, and if you wait till after, I promise I'll answer them, okay? All right. Then, the next thing, eat lots of cruciferous vegetables to clear out estrogen. Now, cruciferous vegetables have a thing, and there's a certain class of vegetables. They have something called indocarbonyl 3, IC3. What this does is has a unique ability to bind excess estrogen in your body and make you pee it out, okay? So, the foods that have this are like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, cabbage, cauliflower, arugula. Those foods are all very high in the indocarbonyl 3. If you do that for like a week, eating a lot of cruciferous vegetables, I don't want to promise, but I'll just say there's a strong likelihood that you will notice changes in your life. Okay. The next thing, does everybody follow that with the cruciferous vegetables? Yes, Tyler?
Let's say sauerkraut, when they're fermented, is that having an effect on
You know,
that effect? Or do you
My wife and I just are getting into the world of fermenting right now, and we're like fermenting everything, and we're making our own sauerkraut, and we just brought that up the other night, like I wonder if sauerkraut, if that's still, I don't know. And I haven't, hopefully in a couple of days I'll know, because I'll actually research it, but right now I don't know if it fermented sauerkraut. You know, it's got no pigment in it at that point. I would have a tendency to think, for all the great benefits it's got, I would have a tendency to think that it loses that, but you never know. Yeah.
Does it matter if they're cooked? They have to be raw?
Ideally, good question. Do they need to be cooked, or do they need to be raw, or can they be cooked? You do. They do break down through the process of cooking. Ideally, I cook lots of vegetables, but we try to not overcook them. And so ideally we'd all be eating perfectly raw vegetables, but they're not always the most tasty. So if you're going to cook them, just cook them the least amount possible. If you have broccoli hanging off your fork and it's like spaghetti, you might have overcooked it, But on the other hand, it doesn't need to break your gums when you're chewing on it. Okay, so high intensity training, we talked about that. Also lifting heavy stuff. When we're lifting heavy stuff, you want to operate, again, very big muscle groups in your body. So your butt, your thighs, your lower muscles, those are the groups that you really, really want to do when you're lifting your heavy things. So here's where we're at. If you want to make these changes, ease into the steps as quickly as possible, and go to liberationchiropractic.com. You can see more of what we had talked about on lose 5 pounds in 7 days. If your spouse is not getting adjusted, do what you got to do, make it happen. And then finally, our nutrition book, the same things we talked about, they're in here. They're like $25 up front. I think you get a discount tonight for being here if you want to get the book. But this avoids, it's especially the advanced plan, is all avoiding sugar. And so if you want that, it's up there for you. But that is pretty much everything. And I hope that I was able to give you a few bits of information without bogging it down with too many details. So, thank you very much. Now I see questions. Torsa?
I'm good.
Are you serious?
I'm good.
Okay. Oh, you're very welcome. Any other questions? Questions? Okay, going once? Going twice? All right, everybody, thanks so much for being here, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
It's a very low such a wreck when it comes to